The first Saturday of college football was in the books. Pads were popping. Upsets happened. So grab your Torchy's tacos, grab your sweet tea, and let's mourn what was another disastrous performance by the Alabama Crimson Tide. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Pigskin Cafe. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
They have to win this game.
There's a problem. This one's tough.
We are back.
That's what my guts tell me.
I genuinely could not believe it.
You don't live in the great state of Texas.
All right, big boy. Hold my sweet tea.
What are we doing?
Welcome back into the Pigskin Cafe. My name is Hampton Sipper. I got my good buddy Graham Haney here with me today to talk week one of college football, but mainly the Alabama Crimson Tide and their loss to the Florida State Seminoles, 31-17. We'll get to that in just a minute, but before we do, a few housekeeping notes. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, leave us a like, leave us a comment, and hit that notification bell. We are 3 subs away, everyone, from 200. Our first video of the year did great. We appreciate all the support. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button, help us get to over 200. We genuinely appreciate it. And follow us on social media, Twitter and Instagram, TikTok, and Spotify and Apple, where you can get your podcast. Now, I'm sure everybody is waiting on this podcast with bated breath because you are wanting to know our thoughts on the disaster, and yes, I use the word disaster, in Tallahassee with Alabama playing Florida State in the opening game of the year. So we're going to break down this game, but usually we break it down into the offense. We go over that, we dive deep into it, and then we dive deep into the defense. But you guys saw the game. You don't really need us to do a play-by-play, even though we are going to get into some specifics later in the show. No, first off, we've got to talk about the state of the program, especially based off of what we saw yesterday in Tallahassee. And the first thing that I want to say is that we have been hoodwinked, bamboozled, run amok, led astray, and flat out lied to. We've been told this whole offseason that in year 2 under Kalen DeBoer, that this culture is different, that this is the tightest knit group that Alabama, that Tuscaloosa has had in years, that they went through the hardest fourth quarter program, that their spring practice, their summer conditioning was the modern day equivalent to what the Junction Boys went through under Bear Bryant. That's what we were told all offseason long. So coming into the year, myself, Graham, we had high hopes, we had high expectations. And we thought that some of the issues we saw in year 1 under Kalen DeBoer were going to be rectified. Graham, dare I say, the issues from last year are worse. They are somehow worse than they were last year. And I just kind of want to start with this stat. Actually, these two stats. In their past 10 games, Alabama is 5-5. Alabama used to go 2 or 3 years before they lost 5 games. Over a 2 to 3 year span, Alabama has lost 5 of their last 10. Kalen DeBoer at Alabama has lost 4 games to unranked opponents. Nick Saban in his entire tenure at Alabama lost 4. In 17 years, Kalen DeBoer has tied that in basically a year and a game. And the most troubling thing to me, after all this offseason talk about how we're going to get back to the standard, Tommy Castellanos called you out and said Nick Saban ain't there to save you anymore. That I'm going to do what I do and there's no stopping me. Talked all this junk, and all we heard was the disrespect will be addressed on August 30th. That's all we heard over and over and over again all offseason. And then you come out yesterday, you have a heck of a first drive. I mean, 8-minute drive, running the ball, balance on offense. And then really for the rest of the game, and I want to preface my comments because I'm about to go off. I'm about to go nuclear. I'm about to crash out, as the kids love to say. I want to preface this with I'm not attacking anyone's character, and I am not saying that the players that have put sweat equity into the program do not care. But I also want to say that your actions and what you're doing on the field is so loud that I can't hear anything else that you're going to say about we got to get back to the standard. We've got to hold people accountable. We've got to start doing things right, running through the line, hitting the takes no talent sign when we make a penalty or when we commit a penalty in practice. I'm done with that. I'm done with this talk, this incoherent babbling about how we're going to get it fixed and how it's different. You showed me yesterday, I saw a bunch of guys out there, especially defensively, that played with no intensity, that played with not hardly an ounce of physicality, no energy, no juice, and honestly, they were soft yesterday. When's the last time you said that about an Alabama football team, that they were soft? Other than maybe, probably last year at times, but for the full 60 minutes, Alabama's defense was soft, and it is personified in the final touchdown in the game that Florida State had. The running back, their freshman running back, hit our guys at like the 5-yard line. There were 6 guys on him, and he drugged them into the end zone. What are we doing? What are we doing? What have we come to where that is the product on the field? Where and people have seen the clips on social media circulating this morning. On the second touchdown of the game, on the reverse, where Bray Hubbard is loafing, Red Morgan is loafing. There's no pursuit to the ball. There's no reckless abandonment. There's no intent to commit physical violence on your opponent and to make them quit, which is what this program was built on under Nick Saban. There was none of that. There was no response to adversity. Alabama punched, then they got punched back, and you know what it looked like? They folded. There's no mental toughness. And again, this is what a guy on the couch, which like I said last year, doesn't amount to much, saw on the field. Their response to adversity is pathetic because there's no mental toughness. And I think that it stems from the head coach. Because I think Kalen DeBoer is a nice guy, and I think he knows what he's doing. He's had to know what he's doing to get to this point. But this team is soft. And I think part of it is because of his demeanor. I think there are guys that are not being held accountable. Look at James Smith yesterday. He commits a penalty that gives Florida State life. Alabama had him 3rd and 11. They were going to have him 3rd and 11, and he makes a selfish move, falls on top of the quarterback, gives him an elbow to the helmet. Was it egregious? No, but it was 100% the right call. I would want that if that were my team. Does Alabama pull him? No, Alabama, the coaches on the Alabama sideline left him on the field. And I hate to compare everything to Nick Saban. Nick Saban would have yanked his butt off the field, and then he would have gotten an earful. But under Kalen DeBoer, it's just another day at the office, no different than what happened last year with Malachi Moore. And we were vocal at the time that was unacceptable, that he should have been yanked off the field, that he should have been suspended, there should have been repercussions. And all I got was, well, you just don't know how much Malachi has poured into this program. You don't know how much it means to him. I don't care. I don't care how much he's poured in. I don't care. That'd be like my parents saying, you know what, Hampton, you've been a good boy most of your life, so when you really screw up, I'm not going to discipline you. There's not going to be any consequences to your actions. And that, in and of itself, not the loss. Obviously, losing is never good. But when I feel like as a fan of the team that I care much about the result than the players on the field. And again, I'm not saying that's the case. I am saying that is what it appears to be. There's a major issue, and I don't think I am not saying, and Graham, I'm about to kick it to you, so get ready. I am not saying that Kalen DeBoer should be fired because that buyout is $65 to $70 million. We've got 11 ball games left to evaluate. But the way this game played out in the first game of the season, the effort that you showed, the lack of want to, the lack of commitment, grit, none of that was apparent. And I watched plenty of football yesterday. I watched plenty of other teams. I watched LSU and Clemson battle last night. Those teams played with a heightened level of physicality that Alabama did not have. And there's talent on this roster. There is no excuse, none, for what we saw yesterday. And it falls squarely on the head man, Kalen DeBoer, and his staff. But it also, the players on this team are not devoid of any responsibility because some of the effort, they're responsible for their effort. They're responsible for the product that they put on the field as well. And it just flat out sucked yesterday. And if you're an Alabama fan who lived through the Nick Saban dynasty, this isn't good enough. We knew there would be a dip, but this crap, I didn't sign up for this. Graham, give me your thoughts on what was another dreadful performance by Alabama under Kalen DeBoer, his fifth loss as the head coach of the Crimson Tide.
Yes, you kind of tossed it to me. I want to start off with a moment of gratefulness. I feel like there's a lot of ways that we could respond to Saturday's performance. But I want to respond first with gratefulness. Okay? I'm not trying to preach to you right here, but in the famous words of Andy Bernard from The Office, he says, "I wish there was a way to know you're in the good old days before you actually left them." And man, I told somebody this earlier, and it still reigns true that if the Alabama dynasty is over, at least we got to live through it. At least we got to experience like the best that college football had to ever offer for Alabama football under Nick Saban. So I just want to start off and say that regardless of which direction Alabama goes from here, like I'm grateful that I got to grow up watching Alabama football at that level for so many years. And I think that that's the reason we respond and are responding the way in which we are.
Yep.
I don't think that as fans, it's a sense of entitlement or a sense of we deserve better or that we've earned more. But it's a sense of we've worked too hard to get it to where it is, to let it just slip out of our fingers like this.
Yep.
Hampton, I'm not going to overstate or restate anything that you just said because I wholeheartedly agree with you. But I think that the Alabama team that we saw yesterday, the best point you made had to do with touching the sign when we mess up. It takes no skill. It takes no effort. It takes no talent to do the right things the right way. And Hampton, that reminds me of my years in grade school as a young wee lad, where when you got in trouble, you moved your clip from the green smiley face to the yellow straight face to the red frowny face.
Yep.
Hampton, let's just mention that whenever you moved your clip, that was not the punishment. That was the time for you to recognize that you did not do something correct, that you messed up, and that you have to then face the consequences for that. So moving the clip was not the punishment. The punishment came at a different time. The same way that touching the sign saying it takes no talent is not the punishment. That's not the discipline. That is the reminder that we have to have discipline and that we have to face what we are facing. We'll have to face what is right in front of us, and that the consequences of our actions do come straight at us. Hampton, I was very disappointed in Alabama's, as you said, their effort. Kirk Herbstreit said it last night during the Clemson LSU game that Alabama looked lethargic. And I was like, I don't think there was a word that could describe it better. Tired, lazy, complacent. I think you look at, especially from the defensive side of the ball, we were just trying to watch and hope that we made the right decision. And all night, all afternoon, the entire game, what Gus Malzahn does best is get you to think one way and then goes another. He sets you up with a 2-yard run, a 4-yard run, and gets you to buy into that, and then he takes advantage of something else. Whereas on the offensive side of the ball, Alabama ran the ball up the middle, get 2 or 3 yards, but never had that big breakaway run that was like, man, we were setting up for that. You know, I think that what we've seen out of Alabama last year and this year, you know, I will admit, at least we're consistent. Okay? We are at a level where we play undisciplined football. We make poor decisions. We have poor game management from the top down. And then we play like...
How many timeouts did we waste yesterday? Talking about game management? At least 4? 4 to 6 were wasted. Yeah.
And let's not act like Alabama... Let's not act like Florida State didn't come to play, and it's not a difficult place to play.
Mm-hmm.
But Alabama did a great job of and let's just say, I'm just going to say this for the Alabama program. All right? It used to be that we want Bama because we think we can handle them. Now people want Bama because they know they can handle us. They know they can beat us.
Yep.
And Hampton, the football I saw yesterday was undisciplined. We were inaccurate. We made poor predictions because we've been lied to, because we've been led astray. But we have got to get rid of the wolf in sheep's clothing and act like everything's okay when it's not. It's not okay. We worked too hard, like I said, to get this far. And I say we worked this hard like me and you've actually done something.
Mm-hmm.
But we have cheered for and passionately cared about Alabama football for too long for it to end like this. And let's just say that it's very hard replacing the best football coach that ever lived in college. It's hard to do that. And I think for some of us, we were optimistic that Kalen DeBoer was going to be the exception to the rule, that the person that replaces the best will follow up and then be the best. And I know we saw great football, great coaching from him at Washington. But Hampton, I cannot tell you right now that I'm convinced that Kalen DeBoer is in the top half of coaches, even in the SEC. It's that bad. It's that bad. I think it goes even further. The halftime speech during the national championship in 2017, when Alabama, 2017, 2018.
Yeah.
Alabama's playing Georgia, and we're down at half. And Nick Saban comes out and says, it's disrespectful for someone to come and take what is yours.
Yeah.
And Alabama responded from that. We heard during the offseason, disrespect will be handled accordingly. And you said that. But I am sick and tired of us just trying to talk about it. Let's stop talking about it and let's freaking be about it. Let's freaking do the things that are supposed to be done and do them the right way, so that whenever you step on that field on Saturday, people will show the respect that you're deserved and that you're owed. And right now, Alabama doesn't deserve any type of respect.
No.
Not a lick of it. If I'm Louisiana Monroe, things couldn't be better for you right now. because things could not be worse for Alabama. And let's not say that the ship's burning and that everybody on board is going under. But at this point in the season, it can go one of two directions. And I promise at this point, that if we do not straighten things out, we will end up at last season or worse. I thought last season was supposed to be a growing year, a building year, an understanding year where we get used to the system and we're making good fits. We're trying to understand the coaches and understand the players and understand the systems. But Hampton, I don't know if last year was the exception or last year is going to be the standard in which we set.
Mm-hmm.
And that we go forward. And I'm not going to sit here and say that Alabama has to win out for things to be good. But if you play like you did Saturday, I don't know that there's many winnable games the rest of the season where you can convincingly say that Alabama is going to take care of business. You watch Tennessee play. You watch Georgia play. You watch LSU play. You watch South Carolina is going to take on Virginia Tech today. I guarantee you that if Alabama plays like they did on Saturday against Florida State, that you can chalk every single one of those up with a big fat L and not even waste another breath on it. Hampton, I'm angered. I'm mad because I feel like we sat there and the game we watched on Saturday against Florida State was the same script from last season. It was exactly the same. The same things we struggled with last year, we struggled with Saturday. I would say the same things we were good at last year, we were good on Saturday. But I don't know if there's one good thing you can point out to on Saturday. And Hampton, you'll probably add some stuff to it. But for me, I don't think there's a single positive that we can take away, except for the fact that you have to go forward. The only way is forward. That you have
The only way
11 more games on the schedule that you at least have to show up for.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how they respond. I'm going to throw it back to you because if not, I'm going to sit here and just ramble on about how bad Alabama was. So, Hampton, before I throw it back to you, I want to give some credit to Florida State because I think the biggest difference in the game was not offense, was not defense, was not special teams, but was that Florida State came out and was hungry. They came to play with their backside on fire, ready to go. And Alabama came out, we thought they looked good starting out on offense, came out on defense, and were colder than ice. Hampton, we got to give credit where credit's due. Florida State came to play, and I think that they're a lot better of a team than people gave them credit for leading into the season. And if they play like they did against Alabama, they will compete for the ACC championship. I have no doubt of that. But Hampton, things are not good in Tuscaloosa.
Not good, Bob. Not good at all. And I think your point about Florida State is an astute one. You said hunger. I say mentality. Their mentality on how they approached that game and how they came into that game was polar opposite from what Alabama's was. There was a different intensity. There was a different level of focus and aggression that they had compared to this Alabama team. And I don't what really frustrates me is I don't understand why. I don't get it. Like, yes, Florida State's coming off a 2-10 year. I knew they would be hungry, and I didn't never pick this game to be a blowout from the jump. I thought it'd be a close for about a half, and then Alabama would pull away because they have more talent, which they do. That's the gum most aggravating part about it is they do have more talent. But Alabama, they put out a pregame hype video before the game about Parker Brailsford saying, it's been 200-something days since we played, and the standard wasn't met then. And, we've heard all the talk. Well, I heard it too. And, how can you hear all that talk? How can you hear about how, you're not the same old Alabama, and then you give that type of effort? Like, I don't get it. We can't say it's NIL when all these other programs, I saw Texas and Ohio State, how they played each other. I already mentioned LSU and Clemson. Games all across the country, they're all getting paid They're all getting paid. So you can't blame it on NIL as affecting these kids. There is something missing in this program, and I think it has to do with the head coach. And I think we can kind of say that now because we can't say, oh, well, he doesn't have his guys in. Everybody on this team wanted to play for Kalen DeBoer, and Kalen DeBoer wanted on this team one way or the other. If he didn't want them there, even if they were a Saban holdover, they would be gone. Same with the support staff off the field. Same with the coaching staff on the field, which we're about to dive in to a little bit of the X's and O's of it because there's a lot to be said there that to add on to the whole thing we've been talking about, the culture and the mentality. And that part about how you played the game and how you lost is what is really sobering and should be to every Alabama fan because I don't know how or who fixes it. You can tell me, oh, we had a players-only meeting and now we're all on the same page. Hogwash.
So what?
Go ahead.
I said, so what?
So what? Exactly. So freaking what? At this point, I don't care if you have 10 players-only meetings this week. You have to show it on the field on Saturday. That is what you were judged by, fair or not. That is the sport. That is the game. It is. I am so tired of the talk. They have to go to work this week, and they got to focus on getting better and going and getting a victory against Louisiana Monroe. But there should not be another time this year where we get on this podcast and we are questioning the want to of this football team. That is the baseline prerequisite that I should see every dadgum Saturday. That you care and that you want to, and there's a certain level of effort that is on display. If you can't meet that, then sure as heck not, or sure as anything, Kalen DeBoer is not right for this job. And before I know you're about to say something, I'll kick it to you real quick, and then we'll transition to offense. But before I do, I want to say I feel like I want to put a clown nose on my nose today because I come out and I talked about Alabama last week because of the talent on this team, the coaching addition of Ryan Grubb, the defense, how it played the back half of last year. I had high hopes for this team. I got sold a false bill of goods by a lot of people, no doubt about it. And guess what? We will keep that in mind in the future. But I want to apologize to a guy like Boo Shirley. I want to apologize to a guy like Andy Nee. I want to apologize to Chase to a lesser extent because he wasn't as vocal as them two, and because I can give him a little more crap. But they were concerned, especially Boo, about Kalen DeBoer and him being a fit in the SEC. And I was willing, there were things last year that I said on this pod. I was very critical of Jalen Milroe, but there were times, especially with in-game management and how he handled Malachi Moore in the Vanderbilt game. That was unacceptable to me. I didn't care what the excuse was. So I had criticism for him, but I was willing to kind of wait and see what the product would look like in year two. I don't have any faith in him. The whole thing about from the Santa Claus 1994, it's not seeing is believing, believing is seeing. I've got to see it before I buy back in to this team and to this head coach, which I can't believe that I'm saying after 14 games at the helm. Graham, final word before we move to the offense?
Yeah, I think you did a great job leading me to this point, and kind of setting me up for what I'm going to talk about next. We're questioning whether Kalen DeBoer is the right fit for the job, and I think at this very moment, I'm not calling for him to be fired, and I don't think you are either.
No, I'm not.
But I just want to bring up some of the first that Kalen DeBoer is bringing to Alabama. Really bringing in a new era of football. The things that Kalen DeBoer is bringing to Tuscaloosa. First opening day loss since 2001. Won the last 23. First loss to Vanderbilt since the 1980s. The first 3-loss season, 3+ loss season since 2010. Hampton, I think we're bringing that he's bringing something new to Alabama. I think the problem is none of it's good.
It's a bunch of firsts, but it's a bunch of bad first.
That's what I'm saying. That is what I'm saying. You know, I think that we can lose. Alabama can lose because of offense, because of defense, because of special teams. And we can be okay with it. We can learn from it. We can get better. I think the most concerning thing, like we said, was the defense showing up and being slow on their feet, not being hungry, winning the turnover battle and not taking advantage of it.
Yep.
The little things, showing up does not take any effort. Well, let's just face it. They didn't bring any either.
100%, Graham. And before, I think we've covered what we think about the state of the team, what our opinion is of the head coach at this moment, and the lack of culture and the lack of accountability on this team. And I'm just going to read this, and then we're going to move on to the offensive side of the ball to break that down in this game. I got sent this just a minute ago, and if you saw when Graham was talking, I put my head down like this. I want to read this to you, Graham. This will be the first time you're hearing it, okay? So take it for what it is worth. This is from a Twitter account, okay? So I don't know if this is 100%, credible or anything like that, but I wouldn't be shocked either with what we saw on Saturday. So this was sent by apparently one of our largest boosters to this person on Twitter. All right, so it says, spent time around the team hotel for 25 plus years, and I will tell you that the DeBoer tenure is much, much closer to Shula or DeBose than Saban. What a ringing endorsement. Man, we're off to a good start. Players are walking around at 1 to 1:30 a.m., getting DoorDash deliveries of fast food the night before the game, seeing players with random friends coming in and out of hotel until 1 to 2 a.m. They couldn't get organized to leave team hotel on time without confusion. As soon as I was around this, I could not get it out of my head because you could see it was an organization that looked second class by the way it was run. Since witnessing that last year, I have held hope. So again, this was last year. This was not this year. I have held hope, but my eyes, brain, and gut all told me this is going to be bad when being around it. And I will leave you with that. And the thing is, I 100% believe that because they look disorganized and uninterested on Saturday. Plain as day. And again, that is an indictment on the head coach. Let's transition to offense, Graham. I'll kind of give my brief, kind of takeaways for the offense and kick it to you, and then let you kind of respond to that. And then I want to hear your takeaways on the defense, and I'll respond to that. That'll kind of be how we kind of round out the show. So offensively, you started brilliant. We kind of already talked about it. The first drive was a thing of beauty. That script was awesome. It was perfect balance between the run and the pass. You showed physicality. You showed that you could be efficient and that you could sustain drives, which again is something that we harped on the past 2 or 3 years that Alabama has not been able to do, is sustain drives. So I was really encouraged by that. I thought Ty Simpson looked in command. I thought he was doing a good job of getting the team in advantageous situations with, he was checking, he was changing plays. He looked calm, he looked poised, made some accurate throws, used his legs when needed. I just thought it was all really, really good stuff, and I thought we were going to be in for an afternoon similar to that. Well, we were not. And I want to start with the quarterback because I know that is the most polarizing thing. And I've seen a lot of people, even like there's a a podcast I was listening to today calling for Ty Simpson to be benched. First off, I think that's utterly ridiculous, with all due respect, especially considering last year, after the struggles that Jalen Milroe had in multiple games, there were many people not calling for him to be benched. But after the guy's first start, you want him to be benched? And then you have the coach come out after the game and be more critical of Ty Simpson in his first start than he was of Jalen Milroe at any point last year? Are you kidding me? My assessment of Ty Simpson was that he was the least of the problem. Do I think he played a great game? Absolutely not. There were many things that he has got to get better at. But I had no inclination going into this first game that he was going to come out there and be Stud Bardo. Like, I wasn't expecting that. And I told people on this podcast that you shouldn't be expecting that. I told our friend group that you shouldn't be expecting that. And the thing that, to me, with him, that he's got to get better at, decision-making's got to be better at times. There were a couple times where he could have taken off and ran, but instead he kind of tried to force a pass, specifically on fourth down. Just take off and run, man. Just be an athlete, be instinctual, and go and get the first down. That's got to get better. There was a throw on fourth down to Kevin Riley. Good read, poor throw. That's got to be better. There were other times in the game where he's got to be more accurate with the football. No doubt about it. His internal clock of getting rid of the ball, there were times he held on to it too long. 100%, absolutely. Here's the thing, though. Those are all correctable issues that come with game experience, that come with reps, which he hasn't had. Okay? This is his first start. And really, other than the South Florida game, when he was playing in another rainstorm, this is the first time he's gotten actual meaningful action in 2 years. So you would think that with that asterisk, by all that it being his first game starting, him going on the road, with it starting to rain in, right before halftime, that this coaching staff would think, okay, you know what? We need to help Ty out. We need to run the ball. We need to lean on that and do play action off of it and take a little bit of the burden off of Ty Simpson and not tell him, hey, go win it for us in your first game. That is not what they did. Alabama threw it, 43 times? 43 times? Are you kidding me? And I went back and charted it. That first drive, I think they ran it 10 times. They had a 14 to 16 play drive. They ran it 10 to 12 times on that drive. Okay? Which should have been the formula all freaking day. But after that drive, to the next touchdown drive, which was at the beginning of the fourth quarter, there were 8 called runs for a running back. 8. They completely abandoned it. When they were getting pretty good traction when they ran it. They averaged 5.5 yards per carry on the first drive, and you abandoned it. Why? And the thing is, that is why Ryan Grubb got fired in Seattle in the first place, is because his refusal to run the dang ball. I don't understand it. I don't get it. You come out after halftime, you throw it 5 or 6 times in a row, and you also, not only is it your quarterback's first start, that is not what your offensive line is built to do. They are not built to be a drop back, pass protect offensive line for 45 to 50 dropbacks a game. And you saw that on Saturday. Because as much as I can moan about the dadgum play calling and complain about it, the offensive line, flat out not good enough. Again, I hear all offseason, oh, they're better. This unit's really gelling. Man, I feel great about the progress that they have made. Are you kidding me? Hayden Proctor, you know what, Austin Porter and Josh, I am sorry. I didn't name drop you on the last podcast, but I am sorry. Both Hayden Proctor and Wilkin Formby yesterday were not good. Not good. Caden Proctor, supposed top 5 pick in the draft, Caden Proctor, 6 pressures. 6. Wilkin Formby had 4. And he was throwing up on the sideline. I guess he ate too much Archer balls before the game or something. Again, that is a joke, everyone. I'm not being for real. But he was throwing up. The interior didn't play that bad. Even though there were times I thought Geno Vandermark got absolutely blown up. But there were many times that Ty didn't have any time to throw. He was pressured on 64% of his dropbacks. 64%. Tell me about any quarterback on the planet that is going to be successful under those circumstances. Not many, especially a guy in his first dadgum start. I don't get it. I don't understand it. And then Kalen DeBoer, after the game, is asked about it, and he says, oh, well, I felt like we stayed pretty committed to it. You didn't. You didn't. I thought it at the time, and I thought it even more so when I went back and looked. You did not stay committed to the running game. And balance is the key. If you can run the ball, then play action on top of that with these receivers that you have, you're going to be mighty successful. Or I think you have the chance to be. I thought, considering everything that was kind of stacked against him, Ty played an okay game. Again, I went through the things that he needs to improve on. There's no doubt that he's got to get better and elevate his level of play. I'm not sugarcoating that. But the kid was not put in a situation or a position to succeed by his offensive lineman, by his head coach, and his play caller and offensive coordinator, Ryan Grubb. But also, these receivers, man, okay? Jeremy Bernard, freaking fantastic. You talked about a positive, Graham, that you didn't see it was hard to find a positive. Jeremy Bernard was the bright, shining star in this game. I thought he was outstanding. Like, got open consistently, crisp with his route running. I thought he played great. No doubt about it. Isaiah Horton gets hurt early in the game, so your third best receiver is out. Ryan Williams had an awful game. Hated his body language. He had three drops. He looked scared to get hit after he got popped one good time in the first quarter. He looked scared to get hit. He ended up getting concussed because he didn't catch the ball, in my opinion. If he catches the ball, he doesn't take a blow to the ground like he did. He was terrible. He gets hurt, and then by the end of the game, Jeremy Bernard was hurt. So your top 3 receivers at one point were hurt and injured in this game. They couldn't finish drives. They moved the ball pretty well throughout the game for the most part, but you couldn't finish drives, and a lot of it is because you didn't run the ball. When you get in the red zone, run the dang football, especially when you had success early with a guy like Kevin Riley and Richard Young. I think both of them, in their very limited opportunities, ran all right. But I think it's even a further indictment, too, that this Florida State defense runs a 3-3-5, and you ran the ball early and then you abandoned it. But even when you went back to it at times, there wasn't enough consistent push. This offensive line, we've been saying it and saying it and saying it. And last year, again, they were not awful, but they weren't good enough. I thought yesterday, honestly, they were downright awful, especially at the tackle position with guys who, Caden Proctor, again, is projected to be a top 5 pick. And he got beat like he stole something. It's absolutely unbelievable. And the last thing I'll say before I kick it to you. They come into this game and, we talked about last year, we felt like we were going to see some new wrinkles. And I think you did see that. I thought you saw a little bit more RPO, a little bit more multiplicity in the formations that you had. You came out in single back, which was music to my ears. But then you went away from that. They didn't run single back or under center, work with Ty the rest of the game, I think, after the first couple of drives. And it was working for you, not only running it, but the play action game off of it. I don't understand it, and I don't understand how, we watched Texas Ohio State, 2 first-year quarterbacks. What did those experienced play callers do? They did everything in their power to not put it on their quarterback to win the game. They asked him to make plays in spots, but they leaned on the running game. They leaned on the running game at the threat of being ultra-conservative. but they try to protect their quarterback. And Alabama's bright idea was to throw Ty Simpson to the Wolves and let him throw 45 times like this is Mike Leach circa 2008. I don't understand it. I commend Ty Simpson for how he fought because, again, it wasn't always pretty, but I thought he fought his tail off. I think Jeremy Bernard played great. I thought some of the backs played great. Everybody else on offense, other than maybe Rico Scott, F minus from me on that offensive performance. And one more stat. I got one more stat, Graham. I'm sorry, I just thought of this. 87 yards rushing, which was the lowest in a season opener for Alabama since 1975. And I believe every loss under Kalen DeBoer except maybe one. So 4 out of 5 losses, Alabama's had less than 100 yards rushing. What does that mean? Run the dang football, Graham. Bless America.
I mean, I'm glad I didn't start too soon, but I think we need the honest perspective of what you're feeling, the emotions that are going through your brain right now. Man, I said that there's not any good things to take away from the offense. What? Go ahead, Hampton. Come on.
Oh, no. Sorry, I was fixing my camera because it went blurry on me, so I was doing that to make it focus. You're good. You're good.
Okay,
I talked
gotcha.
enough. You're good.
Okay. Like I said, there wasn't any positives to take away from Saturday, and I still would agree with that statement because I don't think that people doing what they're supposed to do is in a sense praiseworthy or noteworthy in a sense. Jeremy Bernard did have a good game. I do think that some of that was cornerbacks and DBs and play calling, using Ryan Williams to kind of open up space for Jeremy Bernard. So I do want to give, I guess, a little bit of credit there. But overall, I'm not impressed. Not impressed. I think that Ty Simpson had moments where it was better than others. I think the biggest thing is no INTs, no turnovers on offense, which I guess that is a good thing. So I guess that.
Here's a positive, baby. Come on.
Whenever you say that the positives are we didn't turn the ball over, that the negatives so much outweigh anything else that showed up. But Ty Simpson, indecisive most of the game, made some good throws, made a fair share of also not good throws, inaccurate, low, high, behind, in front of the receivers. Yeah. And so overall, not impressed. He didn't turn the ball over, so I guess that's okay. But Hampton, I think the biggest thing was we found a way to run the ball early. And in a sense, it's like Alabama had won 55 out of the last 56 games or something like that. When they scored on the opening drive, score a touchdown on the opening drive. We do that, and so you feel pretty confident going after that, thinking, "Oh yeah, we figured it out. We've got an idea." And then we did go away from it. We did not stick to what got us there. And I totally get throwing the ball some. You have to. You need to make sure that other defenses and make sure your offense is not predictable. You need to make sure that you are, changing up so the defense just can't easily make decisions. But overall, I was disappointed that even in the run game, there were no big breakaway runs. The longest rush we had was 13 yards, and that happened twice. So we got 2 first downs on runs. Outside of that, 6-7 yards max. It's fine. You can get 4 or 5 yards and win lots of football games, but we've got to start setting teams up so that when we run 2-3 yards, that we are then able to break off a 25, 30-yard run that's really a game changer. You can't only rely on pass plays to be the big plays. And I think that's why Ryan Grubb went away from running the ball at some points, because there were no big plays that were going to be there when we stuck to the run. And so we throw the ball. you know, 50 times, almost 50 times.
Exactly.
Yeah. And of that, 3 sacks, rough. Lost 28 total yards on sacks, which is horrific. But overall, there are areas of improvement, but the fixes are there too. Like there are just the little things we can do right, and we'll be just fine.
Yeah.
When you saw the opening games, between Texas and Ohio State, Clemson and LSU, they were defensive battles. They were, and for the majority of this game, it was a defensive battle. It was going to be who made the best plays, who made the biggest plays, who made the plays when the game was on the line. And unfortunately, Alabama's defense did not hold to that standard, especially second half. So overall, in offense, not, I guess, almost no good takeaways. Not turning the ball over, I guess, is the good thing. Are you good if I shift to defense really quick and give my two thoughts on defense?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I would say give my 2 cents on defense, but as Dave Ramsey says, the advice you get is exactly what you pay for it, and all of our listeners are not contributors, so they are not paying for this advice. So take it as that. Man, I was disappointed in our lack of pressure on the defensive side. The ability to garner and to disrupt the Florida State's at least offensive mentality, especially third and longs, third downs. There was very little pressure. The only sack that we had was whenever we had to send like 8 people and had one-on-one coverage on the back end, and Keon Sabb was able to go unblocked. And I don't know if he would have gotten the sack had Castellanos not rolled right into him, returned and ran right into where Keon Sabb came from. Man, I think that's the biggest thing. Like, we weren't great against the run. We weren't. But we've got to be able to generate some pressure, because we can't rely on our DBs to have good coverage for 5-10 seconds. No defense is going to sustain that. So I'll just say that's the biggest takeaway, is we're unable to generate pressure. And then the second thing is that if you watch the game and you see the motions that Florida State was throwing to Alabama, I think that we were playing right into Florida State's hands simply because our linebackers were not moving their feet at all until they had to make a decision. There was no move right, move left, move up, make sure you're on your toes so that whenever you need to make the play, you can go. You watch, they sent a guy in motion. What if they handed off to him? Our linebackers had not even gotten ready to move. Man, I think that, again, the little things are what we have to fix, which week 1, sometimes that happens, sometimes that happens. But man, when it's all over the field, the little things aren't being done right. That's when it's really disheartening. Throw it back to you.
Yeah. Well, not only that, Graham, it's disheartening because specifically with this type of offense, or an offense similar with a similar quarterback, this result of the defense looking lethargic, the defense looking indecisive, the defense giving up a ton of rushing yards, all that kind of stuff has already happened. It happened last year 2 or 3 times. Vandy comes to mind. Oklahoma comes to mind. Even Michigan, to a lesser extent, late in the game, ran the ball on our defense, which I think, again, had more to do with the offense going, not sustaining drives consistently. But it's a persistent issue, and I refuse to believe that it's because this team doesn't have talent or there's not dudes there. There is talent on that side of the dadgum ball. And that's what I don't understand, and it's hard for me to compute why why Alabama is getting the result that it's getting. You talked about the linebackers. I know a lot of people want to trash the D-line. Look, I'm not saying the D-line was awesome by any stretch of the imagination. They need to be a little bit more disruptive, no doubt about it. and you were playing a ton of younger guys, which I'll get to in a minute, but your linebackers are why those runs busted for huge games. It wasn't the D-line. It was your linebackers not being in the proper gaps and not having gap integrity, not knowing their assignment, not playing sound fundamental football, not tackling. Did they tackle all fall camp? I'm beginning to wonder because they had more missed tackles in this game than they had last year in their highest missed tackle game last year. They had, I think, 2 more missed tackles in this game than they did at any point last year. It's bewildering. And what's crazy is we have guys returning at those positions. Deontay Lawson's a 3 or 4 year player at Alabama, and I think I'm hoping a lot of his was that knee injury he was coming back from. That brother didn't look nowhere near 100%. Either it was like there's a physical limitation there still, or there's a mental hurdle that he has to get over because he looked hesitant and he wasn't moving well. Like he was almost dragging his knee, dragging that leg. It was bad. It was really bad. Justin Jefferson, who, again, clown nose Hampton, I talked him up last week because I thought in his tape last year, that guy was a heat-seeking missile at times, was really physical, was a really good tackler. And then yesterday, he's like grabbing, like just putting out his arms and grabbing and, just awful technique. Like, again, the intensity all over was lacking. The linebackers were terrible. Secondary, which was the supposed strength of the team, they weren't that good yesterday. Damani Jackson at the end of the dadgum game, they run it. I think they ran another revert. No, they ran a jet sweep to Jalen Lucas on like 3rd and 9. He goes around the edge. Alabama strings it out. Damani Jackson comes up. If he comes up, he can stop him. It'll be about 4th and 5, 4th and 6. He actively shied away from the dadgum contact. Shied away. Like, what are we doing? There's no excuse for that. I don't know. The overall energy level on that side of the ball was atrocious. I thought the play, they looked ill-prepared. So, Kane Womack, I affectionately coined him the Dark Knight of defense. That man might as well be Batboy or Robin. He's no Dark Knight, I can tell you that much. Because his scheme against these offenses is being absolutely exposed, and he hasn't adjusted at all. He hasn't adjusted. Like yesterday, that they're going to run the quarterback. You know what the game plan is, and that's the best that you could come up with. Playing 3 or 4 guys in the box, playing 3 or 4 guys in the box, and or 3 or 4 guys on the line, and then you're not bringing an extra defender to come help support or help stop the run, and then your best idea for spying Castellanos is with Yanze Pierre, who doesn't have the speed to keep up with him. Like, I just don't know what the defensive staff was thinking on that side of the ball. Ultimately, man, they got to do a lot of soul searching. Our offense was awful, no doubt about it. I was more discouraged with the defense because I had much higher expectations for that unit with everything that they had coming back. And I'm especially disappointed with a guy like Bray Hubbard giving the effort that he did out there on a couple of plays. Simply not good enough. And I'm going to kick it back to you with this. I just got another stat. My phone has been blowing up all dadgum day with fans alike who are flat out livid at this result, which they have every right to be. Josh Pate apparently dropped this on his show. Get a load of this stat. You ready? There's not been a game that Kalen DeBoer has coached at Alabama where the opponent had more penalty yards than Alabama.
Hmm.
If that doesn't scream flashing red light all over the place about a lack of accountability and a lack of discipline, a lack of commitment, a lack of focus, which are like the 4 tenets of the Nick Saban Alabama football program, I don't know what does. And I'll leave with this before I go to you. They have to look internally. They have to go to work, and there's a chance that you can turn this season around, and this is a moot point. But does anyone out there honestly and truly believe at this point that is going to happen? Because I sure as heck don't.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing, it's not the holding calls or the pass interference calls, but it's the late hits, the undisciplined plays that are not tied at all to the action on the field that frustrates you so much. You know, it was 4th down. One of the times that Florida State got called for a pass interference or holding call, and I was like, if I was a Florida State fan, I'm very much satisfied with that. I would much rather give up that flag than be cooked and guaranteed a touchdown.
Mm-hmm. It was a
But Alabama doesn't give up. Alabama doesn't have flags like that. We're dropping the people's elbow on the quarterback after he's already gone down.
Yeah,
we're false starting after we just broke out of the huddle.
Yeah,
it's unreal. I think that I don't have anything more to say about it, but this, and I said it earlier. We can't just talk about it. We got to be about it, and that will determine the trajectory of the rest of the season. Because there are, if you look down the schedule, Alabama's going to be more talented than probably every other team they play, with the exception of possibly Georgia. That might be the only team you say that they're not more talented than.
Them and LSU.
No. And LSU. Okay, yeah. You could probably make the argument LSU. But we can't just talk about it. We got to be about it, or this season's going to be another one just like last season, just a waste.
Couldn't agree with you more, Graham. And, we try to be, I've said this many, many times before, we try to be very objective on this show. We are clear to you that we're Alabama fans, because I don't want to give off a false impression that I am this fully non-biased, have no rooting interest college football fan. I don't want to give that impression. But I can tell you this much. I love being an optimist. I don't like fanning like this. I don't like being this negative. But there is nothing that has been put on the field for the past year or so that gives me a valid reason to not be, and to not be very concerned about not only this team, but the future of this program under Kalen DeBoer. And I hate to say that as somebody who I thought it was a good hire. I did. I thought and I think you did too, Graham, because we talked about it.
Yep.
We talked about that. We thought this was a good fit. We saw what he did against Dan Lanning. We saw what he did against Steve Sarkisian. What he did against Kirby last year. I think ultimately the guy is a good football coach. You don't get to where you're at if you're not. You don't get Washington to a national championship if you are not a good coach. But he may just not be the right coach for Alabama. And I'm beginning to think that is the case. I hope I'm wrong, and I'm trying not to make any grand, sweeping observation and overreaction. And it's like I said, it's not that they lost, it's how they lost. And I'll end with this. I said it when Nick Saban retired on our show. There's a reel on our Instagram that you can go back and look at. You mentioned the Andy Bernard quote, Graham, about the good old days. I quoted that on that show. And guess what? I knew we were in the good old days. But man, how I long to go back to the good old days. And that's how we'll end the show right there. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We appreciate it very, very much. There are other games that happened this weekend that were great. Troy, go Trojans. Our alma mater pulled it out against Nicholls State. At least that was a bright spot in the day. Texas Ohio State was a great defensive battle. I think we saw, kind of like we said on the show, let's pump the brakes a little bit on Arch Manning. Let's pump the brakes and not herald him as the next coming of Tim Tebow. We both picked Ohio State to win that game. Auburn had a good game on Friday night against the Baylor team that I was higher on. But after watching that disaster and Dave Ronda being stubborn and staying in 3-down linemen the whole game, I don't know if I'm as high on them now, even though they got a really explosive offense. And you saw a team like LSU, who I picked as a little bit overrated because I was worried about their defense. Well, they got that defense fixed. That is what I want Alabama's defense to look like. That's what they used to look like. Flying around, hitting people in the mouth, making them a little slow to get up because you left a mark. All right? We had great games this whole weekend, and we appreciate you guys being along for the ride. Like I said at the beginning of the show, we're so close to 200 subscribers, so if you made it this far, go ahead, subscribe to the channel, leave us a like on the video, leave us a comment on where Alabama goes from here. Maybe you disagree with us. Maybe you think that, maybe you're like that podcast I was listening to earlier. Maybe you think a quarterback change is needed. And that's the main issue with the team. I respectfully disagree with you, but if you do, put it in the comments. Hey, if you think Kalen DeBoer should be canned already, tell me who Alabama should replace him with. Go ahead and put all of that in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Love interacting with you guys, and we appreciate it very, very much. We will be back next week to hopefully an Alabama victory over Louisiana Monroe. But the Pigskin Cafe is going to be closed for now. But until next time, chew on that. Everybody have a great week.